I'm going to start with this picture because lovely lady in the middle commented on the picture, and I don't know if it comes up again later. And actually, excitingly, my laser pointer doesn't work. So I've got this, and I'm going to use it even if I don't need it. So I just wanted to show this picture here of the cat's tongue folded in half, okay? The reason being, how many of you get annoyed with your pulse ox? Yeah, we all get annoyed with our pulse ox. It is ultimately a pulse oximeter. It requires a peripheral pulse to give you a reading. If it can't pick up that peripheral pulse, it can't give you a reading. So this is a few little cheaty things you can try with your pulse ox, especially with cats. So we tend to fold our cat's tongues in half. So the cat's tongue's there, we fold it that way, and we put the pulse ox around the thickened tissue. The reason being, you need about 5 to 10 millimetres of tissue to shine the light through to sort of calculate your percentage of blood that's saturated with hemoglobin, and cats' tongues are often very, very thin, so the clamps just keep clamping them. It's like squishing the vessels down so you can't get a reading. So we'll fold tongues in half quite often. The other tip is pulse oxes don't like to be dry. So in our larger breed dogs, you know those big tongues that get really dry and sort of rough, we will wrap them in a moist, wet, warm swab. So we do warm because that vasodilates the vessel. If I do cold, it vasoconstricts the vessels and my pulse ox doesn't read again. But we'll often wrap the tongue and put the pulse ox probe over the top. With the pictures that I've got as I go through, even if they're not exactly related to what I'm talking about, I'll try and sort of give you some little hints and tips as we move through if you think that would be helpful. Yeah? I want a quick show of hands. Put your hands up really high because it helps for everyone else to see whether you are behind your competitors, really. So how many of you have got pulse oxes? Up really high? Pretty much every... No? Okay, what have you got at the moment? Okay, fine. So you've got a lot of challenges. So a lot of what I'm talking about, I mean, how many are we here today? Don't know how many, over 20. So when you go back to practice, this is why I do this exercise really, you're the only practice out of 20 practices that don't have a pulse ox. So it might be something to, it's a way of maybe bringing it into conversation that you might actually want one. And we'll look at how it would be really beneficial because pulse oxes get really, I mean, we can use them in so many ways that we don't realise. So we'll talk about that later. How many of you got blood pressure? So we'll do Doppler first. Keep your arms up. Oh, you've got Doppler, that's great. Everyone got Doppler. How many of you have got oscillometric? A few of you. How many of you, oscillometric, where yeah, that's it. How many of you got ECG? Capnography? Yeah, esophageal stethoscopes? Right, brilliant. So hands down for me. Hands up if you've got blood pressure again. How many of you use it on every single patient? Yeah, okay, so about half, most of you have got it, half of you using it on every patient. So the lesson that we're going to learn by the end of today is if you have the equipment, you need to use it every day on every patient. Okay, maybe not a cat castrate, but other than that, every day on every patient. Cat castrate, I'm still going to put my, if you're intubating, I'm still going to put my capnograph on, I'm still going to put my pulse ox on, okay? But what tends to happen as we move to the critical patients or the more challenging patients, we decide to get all our monitoring equipment out. But then we haven't been using it for all our routine patients, so it adds another level of sort of problem for us. We've now got a critical patient, all the numbers we're not used to, and everything becomes way more stressful. So my little advice is use everything if you can. And if you've got to share it, you've only got one blood pressure, you've got 2 procedures, then you're going to have to pick which procedure you think is going to need it. So the geriatric cat for 2-hour dental is going to need it more than the dog castrate. Yeah? But if you've got a bitch spay with your practice principal, that might take 20 minutes, half an hour. If you have a bitch spay with your new grad, that might take 1.5 hours to 2 hours whilst they're learning. So you need to decide, well, who am I going to use it on?